Rob, over
Hey.
there, you said, you haven't noticed how things have changed because you've been so busy, but one thing this movie's done is made you a bankable leading man. I'm sure you can work for the next 5 years. How has that change been career-wise for you, and where do you want to be 5 years from now?
I don't know. I mean, I've only done one movie outside of the series, and
And that was?
Remember Me, which is going to be out sometime next year. But even that I did with the same studio, and so I guess I'm still a little bit blind as to what my actual economic viability is outside of the series. But I mean, it's definitely different. I mean, you get offered stuff that you never have dreamed of getting offered before. But that's also, it's scary as well, because you don't have to audition for anything, and so you're just like, well, I don't want to do a movie just because it gets made. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, it's a scary situation to be in a lot of ways, and you have to question yourself a lot more than if before Twilight, I did any movie that I got, and you try and make the best of it afterwards. But now you're expected to come into the movie with and provide not only economic viability but also performance as well, because people are like, you can't just mess around. We're employing you to be a star and an actor. So like, it's difficult and it's scary, but.
But isn't that what you dream about when you started the business?
You do. I mean, you always think, oh, when I've done a big movie, because when you haven't got a big movie behind you and you're not bankable, then everyone's like, he's not bankable enough, and so you can't get the roles that you want to get. And then when you do, you have to, especially with a movie like this, where there's a perceived specific audience, which I think that people are quite confused about as well. But I mean, people start thinking, oh, if you need to get in this audience, so you need to do this and that, you need to look a certain way, and blah blah blah. And so there are some limitations to it as well. Whereas when no one's watching your movies and you get a part, you can do whatever the hell you want. I mean, it's like, because it's just the way it is. But yeah, so there's good and bad points either way.
What personality traits do you share with Edward?
I guess stubbornness in some ways about some things. I guess he's pretty self-righteous. I guess I am. So. Yeah. I guess I get quite obsessive about things, possessive as well, I think. Yeah. I don't know.
Like what?
Obsessive about what?
Obsessive and possessive about.
I guess.
Your privacy?
In some ways. No, I mean, what am I obsessive about? Like, I do kind of. I have very, very specific ideas about how I want to do my work and how I want to be perceived, and when. And to the point of ridiculousness sometimes. I mean, I don't listen to anyone else. Like, I don't like. That's why I don't have a publicist or anything. I can stand it if someone was, trying to tell me to do something, which it's it's probably maybe a mistake sometimes. But I guess about that. I mean, I like being meticulous, and it's quite difficult as an actor to have that much control. And that's actually answers a bit of the other question as well. It's a good thing. That's the good thing about the Twilight series as well. I mean, because it does give you, in a lot of ways, when you agree to do a job, it gives you a lot more control over, like, tiddly little things. I mean, which I want to have everything. I'm like a control freak about it. So I guess that's what I mean by that.
Do you appreciate Edward more with each movie, and what are your favorite parts about him and least favorite parts?
Yeah, it's funny about New Moon because when I read New Moon, it gave me ideas about how to play the first one, and it kind of, it's the one I connected to the most, and the one that humanized Edward for me the most as well. I mean, I guess because in the first one he still does remain from beginning to end an idealistic character, but in the second one he makes a mistake that's acknowledged by everybody, including himself, and also he's totally undermined by more powerful creatures, and he's undermined emotionally by people as well, and I think that's what humanized it. But so yeah, I mean, since I read that book, I always kind of liked him as a character. I mean, and I've tried to play that same feeling throughout the first one and up to the third one as well, trying to get some kind of element of, an all-powerful person, well, almost all-powerful person who's, well, no, it's just the kind of hero of a story who just refuses to accept that he's the hero, and I think that's kind of admirable. I don't know if that really made any sense. That answer.
All right. Love is such a major role in these films, and so many fans want what happens on the screen happen in your real life. How do you separate falling in love in real life with the women you're cast against?
You always got to remember that you're being paid. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of connotations that come with that. Yeah, I think that's one of the major separations. Yeah, I think so.
Did you agree with the decision to make Edward appear as a vision as opposed to just a voice? And then also, how do you keep your life from just becoming one big blur?
It's just a blur. No, there are certain there's random moments which stand out. But I mean, generally, you're working so much that this year I've been working so much that you kind of you're living in an almost alternate reality. I mean, it's like because hours on film set so long, like you're doing like doctor hours, and so and every doctor I've ever spoken to says the same thing. It's like you have no idea what's going on other than working, and especially you're away from your family and friends and all that stuff. But as for the apparitions thing, yeah, I mean, I was always very worried about that because I mean, even before we started shooting, people were all asking questions saying, "Oh, you think people are going to be worried about not having enough Edward in it and blah blah blah," and I was just like, he's not in the book. I mean, so it's kind of, and I was so worried that it was just going to be random scenes, and there was talk at the beginning of showing his backstory in South America, going around like moping or something, and that would have been terrifying for me, and I think it would have been catastrophic for the film as well. But yeah, I mean, I fought as far as I could to keep it as limited as possible, mainly because it just doesn't happen in the book. But then at the same time, it's scary just to do voiceover because it could well end up being very cheesy. So I guess there's a sort of medium, and also it was interesting when they said, because it's not, you're not just there, you're supposed to be playing something, whether you achieved it or not, or whether I achieved it or not, to get to play this just thing, this like you're just playing a vision, and if you play it as realistically as possible, then it becomes an interesting thing to try and figure out. So it was interesting for me at the time.